Mario Kart World has been out for a little over than a week, and my favorite part about the game hands down is the new movement. Or to be more specific, the shortcuts that the new movement now opens up. There is such an awesome level of skill expression on display in this game, as there are so many alternate paths, some intended and some not intended, that open up for you if you know how to chain together all the new mechanics like rail grinds and wall rides. In this video, we're gonna do just that. I'm gonna go over the best shortcut in every single track, explain exactly what makes it so great, and how you can successfully hit it every time you race. Nothing else to say, let's just jump right into it. Alright, we're gonna start off with Acorn Heights, because I think this shortcut perfectly demonstrates what I mean when I say best shortcut. I am not talking about what corner you can cut or alternate route you could take that saves the most time. If you want to know all those, just watch time trials. I'm talking about an alternate path that might not be nearly as well known, and sometimes might not even be faster, but will help you win actual races, not just in time trial, but in online as well. For example, once you get to the cool part of Acorn Heights when you glide over, the technical fastest thing to do here is do a little rail grind and then end up on the ground and take a mushroom through this cut. This is what they do in the world record on time trials. It's the fastest way to go. But what if you're playing online and don't have a mushroom? Well, with some clever wall rides, you can actually take this cut shroomless. It's a bit slower, but obviously you can do it without a mushroom. It's actually relatively easy to hit as well. Once you jump onto the correct rail, you wait all the way until the end and then just spam tricks to try and get over and latch onto the wall. You can't latch on too early or else you'll be too high up to complete the trick, but if we slow it down, you can see this big leaf over the house, which you can also land on, but if you bump into it really at all, it'll kind of most of the time just force you down onto this thing, which is what we want to be wall riding on anyway. Then just make sure to trick off of that to get your boost and you're all set. I won't lie to you and say it's the easiest trick in the world, but if you have the game, boot this thing up in a time trial and give it a couple tests. The only real difficult part of this trick is attaching to the left wall at an angle that'll shoot you out to the house in the off-road. Next, let's move on to DK Spaceport, and yes, we have a feather shortcut in this video. I have not seen anyone else do this, but it's one of my favorite shortcuts in the game because I pulled it off in an online race not knowing if it would work, and it didn't. I was just like, oh, this game's sick. Basically, you just drive off and feather onto the inside wall. Again, you have to be careful where you latch onto the wall here. If you latch onto the wall too early, it'll force you off, tricking you into Narnia, but if you use the feather later, like in this clip right here, you can even get onto the rail itself, which is so sick. Next up, we have Boo Cinema, and yes, I said every track in this game, even tracks that don't really have great shortcuts. So yes, technically the best shortcut here is to mushroom through the off-road. But what I actually want to talk about is a tip for when you're in the film section. The track itself that's connected to the film canister spins independently from the track you're on. So keep an eye out, because if the film is being fed into the reel in the direction you're driving, it can be faster to take the line on the canister itself. I absolutely love Dry Bones Burnout. I mean, the first shortcut I want to talk about here, you can literally see from the start. You just get a charge jump and take the inside line here. It saves a bunch of time. The actual best shortcut here, though, comes in the skull of the giant Dry Bones. You can do a little wall jump off of his eye socket to get on the grind rail. And then once you're on the grind rail, it sets you up for this cut here, which is perfect if you have a mushroom. Just make sure you left trick off of this mini grind rail so you can use the mushroom and cut off all the lava off-road. Speaking of tracks I love, Bowser's Castle low-key might be my favorite in the game. I haven't done the ranking yet, but it's up there. A big reason for that is its shortcuts. You might have seen this shortcut already. It's been everywhere, and it is a little finicky, but if you're able to get on the wall right, from this point on, you just kind of have to shake the controller and try and trick off every object you clip into. However, my favorite shortcut on Bowser's Castle is this monstrosity. I'ma just let it play. Wario, where are you going? Yeah, in order to get this one, it's actually a lot easier than you think because the off-road basically doesn't affect you thanks to these massive boosts you're getting during this section of the course. Because of that, all you really need to do is line up in this direction right here. I like to think of it as trying to fit in between this little triangle. Then once you latch off to the wall, just spam tricks to the right. Next up, we have a simple one. Let's go to Mario Circuit, and yeah, you can trick off of these pipes if you get a charge jump. There are some great mushroom cuts on this track, but even if you don't have a mushroom, you can cut corners with this tech, which is super nice. Alright, this is probably the hardest tech in this entire video, and it comes on Moo Moo Meadows. I'm not even joking. If you have a mushroom and line up a charge jump right here, you can make it over the land with the tree and this entire off-road. Now, granted, all the footage done in this video is by me. I would like to think I'm pretty decent at the game, game, but this isn't like optimal by any means. And as you can see here, I'm like bumping into stuff here. This isn't optimal. However, this clip from the current world record shows how powerful this can be if you nail the tech, which again, I haven't. This one's pretty tough, man. I'm yet to get the timing on this. If anyone has any tips, let me know in the comments below. What I've been doing is using a mushroom and then like a quarter of a second later releasing my charge jump. It's getting me up there consistently, but I'm not consistently pulling it off cleanly. This just goes to show how nuts this game is though. Like Moo Moo Meadows has crazy tech. What are we doing? Next, let's talk about Peach Beach. If you're anything like me, during the second lap, you kind of just get up here and start spamming tricks because it's fun. Because of that, I didn't even know that this was a cut here, but if you have a mushroom or someone else in front of you clears the crates for you, you can cut this entire corner super tight, which is really powerful. Let's go from Peach Beach to Peach Stadium. In the direct, they use this clip in particular to show why the feather is so powerful. That's because getting onto this rail takes this turn incredibly tight, which is super duper strong. However, if you don't have a feather, it's really hard to get there. However, it's a lot easier if you take the top path. I don't think it's faster because the top path is a lot wider, but charge jumping to get up there allows you to then charge jump to get onto this rail, which is a lot faster. This can be useful in online. If you have like a couple mushrooms, you take this final turn super tight and then mushroom through the remaining grass cuts. So again, it is situational, but it's important to know these alternate routes in case the situation does come up where it is faster. Next, let's get to Cheep Cheep Falls. I'm not a huge fan of this course, mainly because I'm not a huge fan of the water driving. So if you're like me and not a huge fan, you can take this path to pretty much avoid it entirely. If you trick off this rock, you do land back in the water, but you don't have to stay there long. Just drive off this rock and rail grind all the way home. Okay, but that's not at all faster. That's not the shortcut. The actual shortcut is more of a tip, because if you're like me, you'd assume that the optimal mushroom usage is this final turn right here. And yes, in races, a lot of times it's more powerful to take a final turn cut with a mushroom, even if it's not technically the most optimal use. So this is still a great cut, but according to the world record, it's actually faster to take this cut right here, which is just good to know. I would have never guessed that. Next, let's get to Choco Mountain, and I have not seen anyone do this. In fact, the world record uses a mushroom on this first initial cut, but I feel like this one I found has gotta be faster. I'm sure it can be optimized more for time trials, but for actual races, this is sick. You basically drift into a wall ride here, which takes you up to this patch of dirt I didn't even know existed, and then from there, you can position yourself perfectly to use a mushroom and cut this entire turn. Before we get to the next track, if you're enjoying this video or learned something new, hitting the subscribe button makes sure you see more content just like this. It would mean a lot, and also let us know in the comments below what else you want to see from this game. I'm down to make like a million different alternate path videos because this stuff is just so interesting, but if you have any specific ideas, I'll be in the comments reading them. Thanks, let's get back to it. Moving on to Crown City, there's a lot of cool like wall riding you can do with the billboards, but the best cut by far comes in the third lap. When you see this Tenants Wanted sign, you want to charge up a charge jump so you can get on the pipe rail right after it. At the end of the pipe rail, you have to left trick to try and make it to the tree, because then you can trick off that and land on this road right here. Absolutely crazy cut. I love this one. Oh, DK Pass, my beloved. This course slaps, man. You might be thinking the best shortcut is actually this one, where you trick off the signpost, but no. You might be thinking it's this one, where you charge jump off of a lamppost and then wall right up to this grind, which cuts the corner like crazy, but no. It's this one, where you just mess around in the trees. You can't even really see what you're doing, but it's so fun. The biggest tip I have for trying to do this one is it's entirely dependent on where you get that first trick off of the tree. If you trick from the tree high up, then you can wall ride pretty high up and trick off the other two trees to clear the patch no problem. But if you get the trick lower, it's often better to just wall ride and then come straight back out so you're not stuck in the off-road for too long. Next, let's talk about Faraway Oasis. You can wall ride on this billboard, which is faster, but the coolest part about this trick is going underwater and then popping out onto the grind rail. As long as you trick off this earlier grind rail, pretty much every character I've tested this with bounces up onto the grind rail without much need for adjusting your angle. From there, this puts you on the top path, and you can even wall ride after that, although I don't think it's actually faster. All right, question block ruins, man. You guys have all probably seen this one, but I gotta show it off because it is that sick. You gotta get onto this specific rail grind, which I like to do by taking the top glider path, because then you can just trick onto it. But once you're on the rail, this is where the trick starts. Jump off of the rail before it gets to the top, and then angle yourself at this pillar to trick off of it and avoid the off-road. From there, if you have time, you can do a charge jump, but most of the time you don't need to. You just trick off and try and graze this ring. From there, you can trick off of that, wall ride, and pop back onto the cloud, and it's pretty straightforward. The main thing is just making sure you have enough distance to hit the outer edge of this ring. Hitting the inner edge of the ring messes you up more times than not. Next, we have Dandelion Depths. I like a lot about this course, but unfortunately, the layout does not really have any great shortcuts. My personal favorite is just wall riding up to this top path, and then wall ride tricking off of that to take a super tight line here. It's not necessarily faster, but it's fun and gets you away from the chaos of everyone down low. Technically though, the best shortcut is this final off-road patch with a mushroom. Next, let's get to Desert Hills. And this track has so many cool opportunities for cuts, but they never actually save any time. Like, you can get a cool little wall jump leading into the sand dunes, but it just keeps you in the air for longer, which is slower. The best cut is probably this mushroom right here, but my personal favorite is this rail to wall on the final turn. Dino Dino has one of the funniest alternate paths in this entire game, because you literally ride on the dinosaur here. Yes, if you didn't know, this guy is a rail. And from that, you can do anything. You can go up to the secret top section here, but the fastest path is to get onto the left rail, which then puts you on the right rail to take this corner super tight, and if you have a mushroom, you can set yourself up to cut this entire off-road. Airship Fortress has some really cool rail grinding tech, but there are a couple of specific tips I have to actually help do it every time. First thing, for this jump here, you want to do it right as you're coming out of the turn. You also want to jump off the chain a decent amount before you get to the top, as that'll reduce the amount of time you spend in the air, which is faster. You can even right trick to take an inside line on the rails themselves, which is faster, but the timing is super precise, and for me at least, messed up my dismount a decent bit. Every time I have a weird dismount, I just try and hit this rail on the far side. Yes, it means I'm taking the turn on the outside, but it's like a guaranteed fixed line for the next couple of turns. All right, next let's get to Koopa Troopa Beach. You probably think that there's not that many shortcuts in this, but look, you see that ramp here? Yup, that means if we charge up a charge jump, we can actually, okay. Man, that really sucks. You know what, screw this track. I'm not talking about it anymore. For Mario Bros. Circuit, the best line you can take is this inside green pipe for the first turn of the track. It takes a tighter line than you can even take with a mushroom cutting off that off-road. It's just very powerful. For the split path section on the first lap of Rainbow Road, if you take the right path, you can actually skip onto the other path, cutting off this final turn, in theory. Again, I would like to consider myself decent at this game, but I have not been able to do this with any sort of consistency. The one time I got it while I was recording, I bumped into the side and it killed my momentum, but it is possible. They do it in the time trial world records, so if you want to get in the lab and figure that one out, go for it. The timing is quite precise though from my experience. Instead, I just want to take this opportunity for Rainbow Road to point out that the first ever grass off-road shortcut of Rainbow Road is in this game. It's right here in the middle of lap 2, and even has a little ramp. Next, let's talk about Salty Speedway. This one has a cool wall ride section that sets you up well for the coolest cut on this track, which is by far wall riding off the grate onto this little looping piece of wall up to this top path. Next, let's talk about Shy Guy Bazaar. This is one of my favorite cuts in this entire video because it has specific tech that will help you online. If you do this shortcut, no one else can do it. That's right, it's crazy. Specifically at the start in Shy Guy Bazaar, there's a bunch of stuff you can do with rail grinds, but this cool shortcut comes at the end. You're probably familiar that at the end you can do a bunch of wall rides, but if you're on the lower path and charge up a charge jump, you can trick onto this rail, getting you to the upper path for the wall ride. Now let's watch this back in slow motion because there's a lot happening here. First, you want to trick onto these plates, at least that's the timing that's worked for me. Then you want to trick off and hit this light post. The light post actually goes flying. You can still trick off of it, but because it is destructible, then no one else can take this line. It gives you a one-time trick boost that no one else can get. That trick will put you on this rail, which puts you on this top part, and then from there you wall ride off to the glider panel. Next, we have Sky High Sundae, and by far the coolest cut here is just this inside line. All you need to do is drive off and remember to trick. Again, if you don't know, you can only wall ride if you trick in this game. If you just drive off, it won't let you wall ride, but as soon as you trick, you're all set. Starview Peak to me is kind of like Dandelion Depths. I like it, but there's just no real interesting alternate paths or cuts. The best tip I have is the underwater section at the end actually gives you that same boost you get in the back half of Bowser's Castle and at parts of Rainbow Road. You just don't really notice it as much because you are in water, which is naturally a bit slower. However, if you're able to drive on this golden outside trim, you still get the boost and end up flying. It's really tough to control though, and especially if you're doing this with other players, I would highly recommend only trying this if you're someone super heavy. You don't want to get bumped off and sent to Narnia. Next, we have Toad's Factory, which has this super cool wall ride alternate path, but my favorite cut at the end is rail grinding off of these support beams. If you get lucky with your cycle, you can even chain this into the rail grind on the final section, cutting over most of the mud. For Wario Stadium, I gotta shout out this path right here, because if you can wall ride at a tight enough angle and get on top to rail grind, you get a free 5 coins while taking the line pretty tight. The best cut here though is right at the start, because if you can wall ride at a tight enough angle to get up to this rail grind, then trick off, you get a great line to basically do it all again and rail grind longer. Next, let's go to the other Wario track. Wario Shipyard has a cool alternate path at the end that I just learned about. If you wall ride up this final hill before the cannon, you can then boost to on top of the cannon, which with some practice can get you on this rail. It's pretty tough because you can't actually see it, but it's a fun alternate path regardless. The final cut I gotta talk about is Whistle Stop Summit. This course has some awesome tech. Huge fan of this final section. There's so many snaking paths and different routes you can drive in, but the best shortcut here is just charging up a charge jump and then doing 2 wall rides to skip this entire turn. This is a sneaky difficult jump to make, but it's definitely worth practicing because if you can get it consistent, it does save a decent amount of time and is super helpful online. With that out of the way, we've gone through every single track in the game. I gave my personal favorite cut that I think is probably the best one to know, and a bunch of other shortcuts. I'm just really enjoying everything I'm playing of this title. The core mechanics are just so fun, and hopefully throughout watching this video, you've learned some new routes that you want to implement into your gameplay, or just had fun seeing all the cool mechanics this game has in store. If you guys enjoyed the video and haven't watched our tips and tricks guide, that has a lot more general tips that you'll need to know, so check it out if you're interested. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.